Welcome back to the Team to Beat Miami Heat podcast, your one-stop shop for daily Miami Heat content. Before I get into today's episode, just want to thank everybody for supporting the podcast and the YouTube channel. If you are watching on YouTube, I'm pushing to 2,000 subs, so don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and thank you for the support. So for today's video, I wanted to talk about two players off the Miami Heat's bench, and I want to talk about who I potentially think can have a bigger role or bigger impact on the Miami Heat next year. And so the two players that I'm talking about are Alec Burks, who we signed as a free agent this offseason, and Josh Richardson. So both players offer unique skills to the table, but who will be the difference maker off of the bench this season for the Miami Heat? So, first off, let's talk about Alec Burks. So, he's a veteran guard known for his scoring ability and his versatility. He's been a solid contributor for many teams. He's played for the Jazz, the Knicks, Pistons, Golden State, Cleveland, Philly, Sac, just to name a few um, of his stops. And his forte is, again, scoring the basketball. And Josh Richardson, who the Miami Heat drafted, Josh, then went on to the Sixers for the Jimmy Butler trade and a few other teams, made his way back to the Miami Heat last season. And he just picked up his player option this season. So he will be returning. Josh is a familiar face, obviously, with Miami Heat fans. He is more, in my opinion, compared to Alex Burks, defensive minded. But he's also able. He's also capable of knocking down the three and creating some plays. So when it comes to Alex Burks, though, I think he has a slight edge. Last season, Alex Burks averaged 10 points per game. He shot, let's see, he shot 37% from three, which is not bad, which is not amazing, but still not bad at all. Um, so he is capable 3-point shooter, which is something the Miami Heat needs. He does have the ability to create his own shot and stretch the floor, like I mentioned, which will be crucial for the Miami Heat, one of the lowest rated offensive teams in the NBA last year. They were 21st, 27th in points per game. So having a player like him off the bench could be beneficial, especially when the Miami Heat have trouble with scoring off the bench. And so Burks is someone who can get hot in a hurry. He's streaky, but he does have good experience, and it does make him reliable in clutch moments. He's been clutch in the playoffs as well, not just the regular season. So going back to Josh Richardson, though, Josh, while he is not a prolific scorer, he brings more of a balanced offensive game. He's a capable shooter. He is also streaky himself. He can hit the 3-point shot. He can drive to the basket, but his offense usually comes within the flow of the game rather through isolation. He's not ball dominant. He could play off ball, which is good. He could play on ball if he needs to. But yeah, Richardson value lies more with his ability to contribute in multiple areas, which leads me to the next point is defense is where Josh Richardson has shined in the past, especially when he was younger. He's not that old. I mean, he just turned 30 years old, but in the past, he was a better defender. Last season, it was up and down. He started off really slow on the defensive end and then picked up and started playing a lot better, helping with the point of attack defense until he sustained that shoulder injury against the Celtics, which is super unfortunate, which took him out for the remainder of the season. And then also he missed the entire playoffs. But again, defense, he's known for his perimeter defense, which is good. He's often tasked with guarding one of the opposing's better offensive players. He has the ability to switch and guard multiple positions, which fits perfectly within the Miami Heat's defensive scheme and system. Spo loves small ball basketball. He loves when players rotate and switch. So that's a huge component of their defensive scheme. So Richardson's defense could be a critical factor when the Miami Heat, needs stops. And again, the Miami Heat are their identity is around defense. So that goes into Josh Richardson's favor. Burks, he's not a liability, I don't think, defensively, but he doesn't offer the same level of effort and intensity like a Josh Richardson. But he does have a little more size. He's like an inch or so taller. He's 6'6", 6'7". Josh is more like 6'5". But he does have more length um, compared to Jay Rich. And he can guard a few other positions too, like both guard positions. But in terms of defensive impact, I think Richardson has the lead and the upper hand. Um, so in terms of playmaking, again, and versatility, both Burks and Richardson do bring versatility to the court. I see them more as shooting guards, but Burks has, in certain stops in his career, played more on ball. Like he's kind of played de facto combo guard, point guard, if you will, at times. So is Josh Richardson. Josh Richardson, like last season, essentially was like one of our backup point guards coming off the bench until he got hurt, and then we eventually signed Patty Mills, and we know how bad he did with this Miami Heat, especially in the playoffs. But Burks can handle the ball, and he can create shots for himself. Again, he can occasionally set up his teammates, but he's not a floor general. He's not a good like like a general point guard or true point guard. Um, but that does make him valuable as a secondary playmaking option off the bench when Terry Rozier or Tyler Hero are off the court. So he does have the ability to play point guard and shooting guard, which adds depth to the Miami Heat's backcourt. So Richardson, um, meanwhile, is more of like a connector on offense. He moves the ball well, plays off ball better than Alec Burks. He makes good decisions. He can initiate the offense when needed. But again, he's not the best ball handler or playmaker, but he is capable. But he's, again, versatile where he could play either technically the point guard, shooting guard, or even small ball, small forward at 6'5". So he's played small forward too as well. Um, but again, his defense is where, he's going to bring the best of his abilities as a primary defender, maybe a secondary ball handler off the bench, and he could be an off-ball catch and shoot type player to spread the floor for players like Jaime Jaquez when he's coming off the bench, Kalel Ware, who's going to be coming off the bench, and a few others. So beyond the stats, um, which I didn't really get into Josh Richardson's stats, from last season. Let me pull those up. He had 9.9 points, not bad. 2.4 assists, 2.4 rebounds, and he shot 34%, which was lower than Alec Burks last season. Um, beyond the stats, I think it's about the fit so far. So Alec Burks is coming into a new system, a new team, going to play with new players for the first time, and Josh, is familiar with the Miami Heat organization and the system, and he understands what Miami Heat culture is all about. So I think that gives him an edge, is that he knows the system, the plays already. He's played with these players now for a year, and some others, in the past, like Bam Adebayo and Duncan Robinson in his first stint with the Miami Heat. So I think that experience is invaluable for a player compared to a new player. Burks, while new to the Heat, again, he's going to bring um, a fresh, dynamic energy and scoring boost off of the bench, which the Miami Heat desperately need. Again, as I mentioned, one of the worst offensive teams in the NBA. So, who's going to have the bigger impact next season if the Heat needs scoring off the bench? Then Alec Burks might be that go-to guy for Spo. Again, his ability to score in bunches could swing games in Miami's favor when they're stagnant and going on those droughts that they tend to do at times. But if the Miami Heat are looking in terms of matchups for defense off the bench, Josh Richardson brings in that versatility on the defensive end. Josh, again, is not a bad offensive player. Like Alec Burks truly isn't like head and shoulders better than Josh Richardson in terms of his offense. But again, Josh, isn't really an isolation type of scorer. It doesn't really get downhill like he used to now that he's 30 years old and doesn't hit the three at the same clip as Alec Burks. But if you need someone with defense, that's going to help the Miami Heat off the bench, then you got to go with Jay Rich. But at the end of the day, both of them are going to play because the Miami Heat are always injured. And again, it's going to be based on matchups and again, who's available. So I see them both playing. But also, Burks is going to have the edge at the beginning of the season, I think, because I don't even know if Josh Richardson is clear to play yet um, in for training camp this coming September. End of September is the start of training camp. So not sure when he's going to be available. So that also gives Burks an advantage because he's healthy right now at this point. So maybe he'll get that nudge um, first until Jay Rich comes back. But we'll see. They're both going to make an impact. They're both going to be in the rotation. I'm assuming they're both going to have some roles, unless there's injuries, unless they both suck and aren't playing well and are super ineffective. Then players like Pele Larson and maybe Josh Christopher could get a shot, or even Keyshawn, who's going to be a small forward. So we'll see. It's going to be an interesting season for the Miami Heat next year. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Who do you think is going to have a bigger impact for this Miami Heat team in general? Is it going to be Alec Burks or Josh Richardson?